Hi everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm bringing you the Eyeshadow Palette Tag Part 2, which is a tag created by Samantha, March, and Allie Glines. It basically just consists of a lot of questions about my eyeshadow palettes. So for instance, like my favorite palette, one I'm keeping for the memories. So that's what we're doing today. I saw my friend Emily do this video and I also saw Morgan Turner do it. So I really wanted to do this video as well. I will have all of those channels I just mentioned linked in the description box, but I think without further ado, if you want to hear all about my eyeshadow palettes, then please keep watching. So the first question is my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette, and this is immediately like the most difficult question probably in here because I have quite a lot of eyeshadow palettes. I love so many of them, so just to choose one is really difficult for me. But there is one palette in my collection that I just keep thinking about. I'm like, which look shall I do? And I just really want to reach for this palette, and it's also quite an underrated palette, so I was thinking, should I put it in the underrated category? But I am going to put it with my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette, and that is the Tarte Tartly Juicy eyeshadow palette. So this is what it looks like. It just comes in this really cute light pink packaging, and really the outside of this palette reflects the inside as well, because this color story is just like a super cute pinky peachy color story, and I absolutely love this palette. The shades are super easy to work with. I feel like this is a super beginner friendly palette, and it is just one that every time I create a look with this, I absolutely love it. And I know not a lot of people love this palette. I don't hear like too much about it, but whenever I use it, it just makes me so happy. So that is just why I had to put it as my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette. If you know me, you know my favorite palettes can change. So if like I had to film this video in a month from now, I could totally mention a different palette, but that's just like the fun thing about eyeshadow palettes. Sometimes a certain palette is your favorite, and then another time a different palette is your favorite. I love switching up my eyeshadow palettes, but this has been a consistent favorite in my collection. So that is the Tarte Tartly Juicy eyeshadow palette. The next question is a new favorite in my collection, and the palette I chose for this is this little quad from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the Charlotte Tilbury quad in the Bella Sophia. I received this palette for Christmas and I've been absolutely loving it so much ever since. I honestly didn't expect to love it so much, but it is absolutely beautiful. It's the most gorgeous like warm brown color story, but this brown here is still quite neutral. It's like the perfect tones of brown on your eye, and this shimmer right here is just so gorgeous, this pop shade, and every time I create a look with this, I just love how it turned out. I love putting like a brown eyeliner in my waterline when I'm wearing this, and like do some like smoky shadow on my lower lash line, and this is just so beautiful. So whenever I wear this, I just feel like my eyeshadow is absolutely gorgeous. So that is the Charlotte Tilbury Luxury Quad in the Bella Sophia. I highly recommend this quad from Charlotte Tilbury. It has become one of my favorites. The next question is a palette that you keep for the memories, and for this category I knew immediately which one I had to choose, and that is the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice eyeshadow palette. So this palette is quite old. It was released from the holidays of 2018, but I bought it when they re-released it in July of 2019, so it's like 2 years old. This is just a palette I don't really use anymore because it's more old, but it is one that I just keep for the memories. Because first of all, the first time I saw this palette was when I was in New York. I didn't buy it then, but I really regret not buying it, and then I bought it on a trip to England in July, and it's just one that I just have a memory about, and I'm so happy that I bought it because this is truly beautiful. So this is what that looks like. Like, look at this color story. This is definitely my favorite palettes out of these Too Faced holiday palettes, and I don't know what it is, but this palette is just so beautiful. And as you can see, I've also hit pan on like one shade. This palette was just so loved, and I still think it's absolutely adorable. So this is one I just cannot get rid of, and one that I keep for the memories. Next up, we have an underrated palette, and for this one I also chose a Charlotte Tilbury quad because I truly think this quad is super underrated, and this is the luxury palette in the Uptown Girl. Now this is what it looks like if you haven't seen this quad before. I know like when people people talk about Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow quads, they mostly talk about like pillow talk or exaggerize, but this is one that I just do not hear a lot of people talk about, and I'm so sad about it because this is truly an absolutely beautiful quad. So this is definitely a cool toned palette, and I feel like that is the reason why not many people gravitate towards this. However, I truly feel that cool tones look so beautiful on so many people, and I feel like everyone is always reaching for warm tones, but cool tones can look super flattering on people too. I really like cool tones on myself, so this is one of the palettes that really surprised me when I bought it, and I truly think that this is underrated because I love every look that I create with this. I absolutely love how it turns out. I love how easy it is to apply, and I just love reaching for this palette. I just feel like the shades are absolutely beautiful, and it's just a palette that I think more people should try and more people would love. So that is the Charlotte Tilbury Uptown Girl palette. The next question is not a favorite palette but can't get rid of, and that definitely has to be the Kylie Cosmetics and the Grinch palette. So this launched for the holidays of 2020, and it is of course from Kylie Cosmetics. Now I don't know what it is about this palette, but a few weeks before this launched I had watched the Grinch movie for the first time, like the newer animated version, and I absolutely loved it. So when I saw this release I knew I had to get it. I also bought one of the blushes, but I got rid of that one, but for some reason I just cannot get rid of this palette. Like, look how beautiful these shades are. The reason this palette is just not my favorite is because of like the green tones, and the shimmers are a little flaky. So every time I create a look with this, it is more of that like olive tone look, which isn't necessarily my favorite. And the shimmers in here, most of them are really quite flaky, and that type of formula is just not my favorite. So that is why this palette in general just isn't my favorite. I don't think it's a bad palette. It could have been made a lot better. That being said, I just cannot get rid of this because how cute is this? It was super limited edition, and I'm just so happy that I have this in my collection that I just do not want to get rid of this. So that is the Kylie Cosmetics and the Grinch eyeshadow palette. The next question is your favorite collab, and my favorite collab palette would definitely be the Sigma Beauty and Cinderella eyeshadow palette. So Sigma collabed with Disney on this palette to create a Cinderella themed collection, and I still have the palette. I absolutely think it's so beautiful. So this is what the color story looks like. So this is what the palette looks like, and what I just absolutely love about this palette is the more unique color story. I truly think this is a beautiful palette. I haven't tried it a lot of times, and I don't know why. I never really reach for it a lot, but it is one of my favorite collabs in terms of how beautiful this packaging is and how beautiful the selections of the shades are. So I just had to choose this palette for my favorite collab because it's absolutely stunning, and you guys know I absolutely love Disney, so I definitely should play with this palette a bit more because it is truly beautiful, and it's definitely one that I personally should reach for a lot more. But that is the Sigma Beauty and Cinderella eyeshadow palette. Next question is your 2021 favorite palette, and that of course goes to the Natasha Denona Retro palette. This is the Midi Retro, and I mentioned this as my favorite palette of 2021, and I still think it is a beautiful palette. So this is one of those like more cool toned mauvey color stories, and look at this. This is just a color story that I absolutely love. I love that it's more on the cool tone side, but it still has like those reds and mauvey tones in here, and I just feel like the selection of shades in here is absolutely beautiful. I love how they work. I love how blendable they are. Some shades in here I'm not the biggest fan of, but most of them work absolutely lovely, and this is just a palette that was my favorite of 2021. It is just beautiful, and I absolutely love using this. So that is the Midi Retro from Natasha Denona. A palette I did not expect to love is the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. This is a palette that I just didn't really want to get because Natasha Denona palettes are quite pricey, and if you know me, you know I'm not the biggest fan of like warm tone bronzy eyeshadow, so I never really thought about getting this. But then one day it was on sale for 50% off, so I was like 50% off, I just have to pick it up to try it out, and I really wasn't expecting to like it. So I was expecting to maybe like sell it after using like one time because I just wasn't a big fan. But this palette has surprised me so much, and I actually love it. So this is what it looks like. I think we all know what the Natasha Denona Bronze palette looks like. It's just a palette filled with all of these warm tones, and it reminds me of the Urban Decay Naked Heat that I used to own back in the day. And I just really love the quality of this, which I wasn't surprised by, but I was surprised how much I actually like these bronzy tones on me. It's definitely more of a summer palette for me. I don't really tend to wear a lot of these types of shades in the winter time, so I haven't been playing a lot with it, but I think when it's summertime again, I'll definitely pull out this palette a lot more and create like gorgeous bronzy looks with this, because this is a palette that just surprised me with how much I love it. And I also think it's an absolutely amazing deal for 50% off, so I was so glad that I got this palette from Natasha Denona. Then next up is a palette that sparks joy, and for me that is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Instant Eye Palette. This palette to me is just absolutely beautiful. I love this, and every time I use it, it just makes me happy. So first of all, how gorgeous is this packaging? Just this beautiful gold reflective packaging. I think it's absolutely adorable. Look at that. How absolutely beautiful is this palette? I'm so glad that I picked this up, and every time I use this, I just absolutely love it, just because I love all of these tones. They're quite similar in tone to the Tartly Juicy Eyeshadow Palette, but I love both of them, and this palette just always makes me happy because the shades in here are just so lovely, pretty, and it's super easy to work with. So I absolutely love this Charlotte Tilbury Instant Eye Pillow Talk palette, and this is definitely one that sparks joy for me. The next question is the newest palette in your collection, and that is the Natasha Denona Mini Crush palette. If you haven't seen it, I did a review on this in my previous video. I think it's a super pretty palette. I'm wearing it today. I felt like the purple shade worked better today than it did in my last video, because in my last video I said I wasn't like the biggest fan because it was quite patchy, and it still didn't work the best today, but I feel like I made it work a little bit better. So it's still a palette that I think it's super cute. I just love this color story, and I love that it is inspired by the Natasha Denona Midi Love palette. So definitely check out my review if you want to see my full thoughts on this palette, because I definitely think it's gorgeous, but watch that review to find out if you really need it. And the last question is the first palette that you used in 2022, and for me that was as well the Natasha Denona Midi Retro palette. I just mentioned it, so I'm not going to be showing it again, but like I said, a really lovely palette, and this is the first palette that I used this year. Okay everyone, then this was it for my version of the Eyeshadow Palette Tag, which was created by Samantha, March, and Allie Glines. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely check out the video from the other creators that I mentioned in my intro. And if you have a YouTube channel, then I would absolutely love it if you made a version of this video as well. And if you don't have a YouTube channel, then definitely feel free to answer these questions in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your answers on all of these questions. But if you did enjoy this video, then I would absolutely love it if you gave it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss any of my videos. All of these things would help me so much with my channel, and I'd really appreciate it. But with that said, I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. I really hope you have an amazing day, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye!